Hi guys, it's Angelos from JustStarTrek.com, and I want to give you part 2 of my Star Trek Discovery pilot review. So I've had all day to think about it, and I wanted to share some further thoughts and maybe some predictions about how these series will pan out over the coming few episodes. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit more about Michael Burnham, the character, and we have a really good setup for her character over the past 2 episodes, with her essentially betraying the captain, causing a mutiny on the ship, which caused her to be chucked in the brig. And I just felt that was a very massive leap for anyone to do. I think it was Jean-Luc Picard who said that there was only a couple of people that's ever done that in Starfleet's history, and the show didn't quite give it the gravitas or drama that it deserved to essentially betray a friend and her captain. So it would be interesting after she got stripped of her rank to be reintegrated into USS Discovery, because I imagine that's where she will be ending up very soon. Will she have almost like an Ensign Rowe kind of integration, where you have a bad Starfleet officer who's just misunderstood, trying to integrate back into a Starfleet ship? So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. One thing I didn't like was the North Korean court-martial setting, where she was being court-martialed with the faces shrouded in darkness. That didn't feel very Starfleet at all. Starfleet is very less draconian than this. I would expect that more in a North Korean jail as opposed to a Starfleet institute. But yeah, it's just a minor little quibble. Also, wanting to shoot first, ask questions later. That isn't the Starfleet way at all, and it just hinted slightly at a more darker Star Trek. Is that an allegory for our modern times, where we prefer to shoot first, ask questions later, whereas being more of a military-minded political system is more preferred than being a diplomatic system? So perhaps it is a mirror to our times, which Star Trek does very well. I see her becoming like a Spock-light character, where essentially she will be, I believe, perhaps the number 1 to the new captain on the Discovery, where she is almost half Vulcan. She was raised by Sarek on Vulcan, so she will have that human stroke Vulcan conflict, which could make for interesting viewing. Saru, that's an interesting character. We've never seen his race before. We saw a slight element of uncertainty when he was in the captain's chair. Will we see him become more courageous or address the fact that he is uncertain? Perhaps explore the fact that his race was bred. Perhaps he was bred by the Federation, so there could be some conflict there, some unresolved tension perhaps that we could be looking at in the future. So I look forward to seeing what's going on. Now, a lot of people have been talking about the new Klingon design. I don't mind it personally. There was a very, or should I say, not so very subtle reference to skin colour within the episode, and yes, okay, you don't necessarily need to be so subtle, so obvious with these things, but I just thought it was an interesting view on the new Klingons and their makeup and their design. Just like when the Next Generation started and the motion picture started, it was a complete redesign of the Klingons, and again, I think that's just a way of the producers putting their stamp on the new Star Trek series. I like the uniforms. I thought they looked smart, and I like the new comm badge. I wonder if it is a push comm badge, or whether they're just going to be relying on the communicator. I suspect it is just a communicator, but I like the uniforms. They are good looking uniforms. Sound effects, it was a mixture of the original series and the Next Generation onwards. Now, bear in mind that they are trying to honour what came before. I thought it was interesting that they were using post the Next Generation sound effects, which were both familiar and also a little bit not quite of their period, if it is set 10 years before Captain Kirk. But again, that you just have to take that with a pinch of salt. That they will have more modern looking sets, more modern looking special effects and sound effects for this series, in order to keep the viewers in time with what we expect for a modern looking starship. But in reality, it will look a lot more advanced than what was produced in the 1960s. The hologram comm channel, now I can see where they're going with this. We had a slight reference with this with Captain Sisko in Deep Space Nine, when he was viewing the Commander Eddington, when they were having their face-to-face discussion. I thought that was a very well done episode and special effect, but it just seemed a bit jarring in this, especially when Sarek decided he was going to sit down, and Was he sitting down at his desk? Was he sitting down at Michael Burnham's desk? We don't know. Perhaps it was just for dramatic effect. I just felt the jittering of it. I just felt that maybe Starfleet would have slightly better technology than just a hologram that keeps jittering all the time. Going on to comm channels and communication, I felt that the Kartra scene with Sarek and Michael Burnham was a little bit, it was pushing the realms of possibility, even for science fiction. The fact that just because they had some kind of mind meld years ago, it could allow subspace communication over vast distances. I just thought that was a little bit pushing it slightly. And moving on to the space battle scenes, they were very Battlestar Galactica-esque. They weren't really what I was hoping for from Star Trek. I've always liked the fact that they were clean battle scenes with the phasers coming out and you can clearly see what ship is firing at what. It was just a complete and absolute mess. I didn't really like it. I felt with so much money spent on special effects, you could at least make it clear to see what was going on and who was firing at who. I disliked the way that the phasers shoot. I've always been used to the phasers being one continuous line as opposed to pow 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 pow, and it just looked messy. I don't like it. It's something that they've inherited from the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. I've never been a fan of it, but I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments whether you agree or not. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of the series will bring. I feel optimistic. From the feedback I've been hearing from different people is that they also like it. So I go back to the theme of, yes, it's familiar, but it's different. So we're used to this Star Trek, but it's different again from what we're used to. Similar to how the Next Generation was also different from the original series. So these are my thoughts. Please leave your comments below. I look forward to hearing what you also thought of the Discovery pilots. Click subscribe as I've got a lot more reviews coming your way. Live long and prosper.